Good mid-morning, everybody. Welcome to the agenda review. We're in council chambers today because we're also spending part of our day interviewing candidates for city manager. So we're squeezing it all in today. I'm going to turn it over to our city manager, Deborah Campbell, to take it away.
Thanks, Mayor, and good. I think we're calling this mid-morning, right, everyone? As you know, the council agenda briefing meetings are principally designed to help you all prepare for your upcoming business meetings. Your next meeting is scheduled on Tuesday, November the 18th. The meeting will start at 5 p.m. and will be held in this chamber, located on the second floor of City Hall. So the run of show for today's meeting is as usual. We will start with a review of items on your business meeting agenda on the 18th. Assistant City Manager Jay Dundas will review these agenda items, review upcoming council committee meeting agendas, and the 8-week calendar. We do have 3 items under the other issues and concerns section of this agenda that will include an update on the Human Resources Department assessment, continued discussion of the transit operational assessment, and the point-in-time count. And just as a reminder, at the conclusion of this meeting, you all have a closed session meeting. I'll now turn it over to Jay to review the first item on the agenda, which is your November 18th business meeting agenda.
Thank you, Ms. Campbell. Jay Dundas, Assistant City Manager. Good morning, council members, and thank you for all of your activities this week. I know you're very busy, so we'll try to be as efficient as we can with this information. So we'll start out with the review of the November 18th council agenda. There is a closed session beginning at 4 p.m. on November 18th. And then that moves into the regular council agenda at 5 o'clock. There are no proclamations on that agenda. So moving to consent agenda, there are quite a few items on there. I will work through them pretty quickly, but if there's anything, I'll highlight some things that I feel like are worthy of additional attention, and if there's anything else that you'd like to talk about, please let me know. First item I'd highlight is item D. This is to ratify the execution of a lease with Tanger Asheville LLC. This is a Asheville Police Department has been very creative in their work with the outlet mall to be able to set up a West Asheville police station out there. So it's off of Brevard Road. We've been working on that for a while, so they're excited about being able to have that location.
Jade, I have a question.
Yeah, I was just gonna, is it just to provide coverage for the mall or just to have a base in that area of town?
It will be a base for West Asheville, that area. They feel like Station 6 on Haywood Road doesn't meet their needs.
Far.
And so this is a better location for them.
Oh, they're not gonna, I'm sorry, they're not gonna be on?
They may have some presence there, but they're setting up an additional presence. We'll have to follow up with that.
Additional presence or leaving the Haywood Road Resource
I
Center?
will follow up with that information.
Yeah,
That's a
seemed,
big deal.
yep, I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we'll
So
follow up.
I read the staff report that mentions why they're moving, including the traffic, which is interesting because sometimes at certain parts of the day, Haywood Road traffic gets really backed up. So the new location seems to be close to interstates. But I did have a question about the funding part. It's $830,000 over 10 years, so let's say $84,000 a year already identified in the APD budget. But my curiosity was, because it was already budgeted, what's not going to happen that funding was originally earmarked for?
We can certainly follow up, and we'll make sure that APD is here at the meeting to be able to answer these questions as well.
And there's no community input into that kind of process of relocating a police resource station?
It's an operational decision.
We're just not concerned about the community responding
There's
for
certainly
it?
concern about the community and the responders. I believe that they probably worked it into their response scenarios. And so, again, like I said, we can certainly have police here to respond to these questions, except provide additional explanation.
Okay, well, so I think what you're hearing from council is understand the need for the location out at the mall, and Tanger's had a very strong partnership with both fire and police for a while now, but concern about whether or not there's going to be any presence still on Haywood Road.
Yes,
Okay.
It's insane.
moving on to item E and F are about also both related to the advanced metering infrastructure project, which continues to move forward with the water department. Item G is a responder support services for counseling services. This is an authorization of a new contract. These are very important services for our first responders and have also been used organization-wide in some traumatic events that have occurred, but also throughout Helene, so the response to Helene. So these are very important services for us to continue. There are a number of construction and contract-related items, J through N. Two worth highlighting are item L. We have finally gotten bids on Airport Road. This project went out 4 different times, and 3 of those times we got 0 bids on. So the perseverance of staff to be able to get this contract completed is paying dividends. So we're moving forward with that project. And then also a contract with Universal. We're asking for city manager's authorization to execute a contract with Universal Security Guard Association for city building security. And this is the current contract for Public Works and City Hall was didn't have any additional renewals. And so we had to bid a new contract there, so we put out an RFP. Additionally, we sought services to be comprehensive and consistent at all rec centers. And so this contract is a significant dollar amount. That's $1.4 million. $500,000 of that will be allocated from fund balance over in the next from December, to provide services from December to the end of the fiscal year.
Is that security guard going to be out of the car and walking around, or is this just a person in a car?
No, sir. It will be an on-site security presence, similar to what we have at our other public facilities. So
And they will be armed?
Yes.
So outside the car?
I'm sorry?
Outside the car, you just said similar.
So like
Yes,
walking
yes,
around?
they will. Yes, they'll be on site. Yes, inside in buildings. So items O through Q are grants, various grants for hurricane related repairs. The item O is council has already seen an item for hazard mitigation grant program. These are just additional applications for items that we need to advance. And then also, we're also constantly looking for money for additional opportunities to help mitigation and resilience.
I have a question on that one, Jade. So in this batch of HMGP proposals, the staff report mentions there's one to develop a strategic framework for a long-term stewardship of the properties, and then a second one for an North Fork alternate route utility protection. I don't really know what that means, and that's for 10 million to 233 million. So could we just have like a little more information about what that is,
Yeah.
what the strategy is, just a brief on, I want to understand what y'all are thinking, and I don't feel like I have a sense. So we don't have to do that now, but at some point, just like a page memo or whatever, so we can understand what the approach is.
We can certainly follow up with details on those projects.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, so that concludes the consent agenda, unless there's anything else the council would like to discuss. Moving on to the presentations and reports. The manager's report is on the American Rescue Plan Act update. These have been periodic updates since the inception of that program. Public hearings include a public hearing to consider an amendment for conditional
You've done a
zoning
lot,
for the new Hawk Creek Road development.
Okay, pause. So Hawk Creek, everybody wants to know if Hawk Creek is going to be on the agenda Tuesday night. The applicant's attorney has been going back and forth with staff around the issue of whether or not council has to consider an amendment to the conditional zoning application in order to allow them, the applicant, to have a bridge into the project from Haw Creek Road, which was not part of the original proposal that we approved. And everybody just correct me if I'm wrong, but this is an ordinance interpretation issue that staff has determined, at least the legal department and the upper management have determined this is something staff can allow without us voting on this project. However, the planning director ultimately makes this decision, and so it is with her. And she will be talking to the applicant and their attorney later on. So this is kind of, what I'm trying to say to you is that this is still pretty fluid. And if Brad wants to patch up what I just said and put it in more legal terms.
Maybe with some comparison to how a different project would be approached, like why is this unique?
Or that's probably not quite the right question. Why don't you let him just explain what's going on here and then see what you want to.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So as you stated, this is a property and a particular rezoning that was previously approved by the council through a normal conditional zoning process. Since that time, a determination has been made that one of the conditions that was part of the approval is no longer legally viable. Specifically, there was a condition included in the approval that said one of the access points would be provided through the neighboring community. Specifically, in this case, it is the Happy Valley community. That was intended to be a viable option at the time based upon some legal considerations that did not end up coming to fruition. So what that now means is in order for that to work, the property owner would have to utilize and modify property that's not part of the rezoning and they don't have any legal control over. So because of that, we don't have the ability to enforce that particular condition upon the applicant. The remainder of their rezoning is still viable, but they have proposed the possibility of adding a separate and new entrance into their community via a private drive from New Hall Creek Road, which passes through the subject site. We've reviewed that proposal in legal and made a determination that it is up to the planning director at this point to determine whether that change is what we call a minor or a major modification. Staff has the ability under state law to approve minor modifications to any already approved site plan. Major modifications have to return to council for your consideration. There's a variety of elements that go into making that determination. It's things such as the land use change, the density change, is the effect on the operations of the way the site works altered significantly. And at this point, it would be up to the planning director to make that determination. If they feel that it is only a minor modification, staff has the ability to approve or disapprove that. If it is a major modification, only council can make that determination, which means it would come back to you on Tuesday night.
So no final decision yet, though, from staff. So we're kind of in this limbo.
Well, I have several questions. One is if we zoom out CZs in general, where we're told we're just looking at this part, we're not considering this other part where the land is actually not in consideration. This isn't the only time that that's happened, but it is curious to me why we would take up a CZ and then learn later that it's not actually a legally sound situation for us to put us in. So what does that do for other projects where we might have had similar action?
I think this or similar circumstances generally only pop up in a small minority of cases. There are situations where it is required of the applicant to gain an easement or a driveway or an access point, and most of those issues can be worked out sufficiently in advance of city council. This particular one, if you require, there was a lot of negotiation and alterations to the proposed plan right up to, and I think even including during the council process. And this is one that the applicant at the time felt strongly that they could obtain the necessary rights to be able, they were specifically negotiating with the property owner and the neighboring property to be able to gain the legal access to that property, but that never came to fruition. What we like to do, and really a best practice, would be to have all of this ironclad and worked out in advance. But this is one of the particularities that can come up occasionally when those negotiations stretch all the way into the day that council's looking at it. And this is one where, unfortunately, you have a condition that at this point we can't, the applicant can't gain legal access to that property, and therefore we can't force them legally to obtain rights on properties that they don't have.
And then the follow-up for this one specifically, am I understanding that access to the property in general and a major piece of infrastructure may or may not be a major decision?
Well, the most I can tell you is that a city attorney, I would not make that determination. So we, from a legal standpoint, only looked at this to make a determination about whether or not that one condition, the access through Happy Valley, was still legally viable or not. And we've agreed at this point that it cannot legally be enforced. We would not, in my office, make a determination about whether or not this particular alternate proposed road or it's a private drive is a major or minor modification. The way that is set up under state law is it allows the planning director to determine if it's a major or minor modification. I'm sure that she's taking this discussion into consideration when making that final decision point. But there is a specific set of requirements that they have to look at to make that determination, and anything that crosses the threshold automatically has to come before council.
Could we have that in a follow-up document where the state law points in that direction?
Yep, absolutely.
So, I'm just going to recognize right now that this is really confusing for the public, because this has been sitting here for a very long time as a amendment to a conditional zoning that needs to be heard by council. So I think, while I appreciate that these are very tricky legal issues, and there's been a lot that's been happening between the developer and his representation and on a staff level, kind of working through the interpretation of these ordinances and their position versus the city's position. The public has not been on that journey, on that decision journey that's been happening, kind of here we are in City Hall. So I don't really know what to say about it, because it's not our decision whether or not it comes to us, but it will be our decision if it comes to us. So if there is a way to update the community about this development, I don't mean this, I mean this new
Change in the-
information, then I'm not sure exactly how that should be done, but it would be helpful to have that done. Haw Creek is a very organized neighborhood and has a community e-newsletter. They would be able to provide this information to the community very quickly. So if that can happen.
When will the planning director make her determination?
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. So, I know, Jade, thank you for patiently standing there while we work through that one. All right, I don't think, unless anyone else has any other questions, there's not much more than to stay tuned. And just, I would ask that if we can communicate what essentially Brad just said in some way, shape, or form to the community so they can provide this information to the neighborhood, that would be greatly appreciated.
And we hope that we can have that before the 18th, right? That is our goal in terms of a decision.
In terms of have that meaning the
Yes.
decision, not this information about what the
Correct.
decision is.
Yes.
So is the hearing being delayed then? There's no hearing?
We don't know.
That's
But
what
right now, we're
we're
pulling
trying
it
to
off
figure
this
out.
agenda briefing.
No.
At
right
least
now
by
we're not
Monday.
pulling it.
Oh.
We can't pull it, the developer has to pull it under the statute. I'm sure they're waiting to determine if they need to pull it. Uh-oh, wait.
We've got
You're-
an
someone's-
Yeah, if we
Attorney
got-
showing
that's-
up.
No.
Hands being
that's
raised.
staff.
Starbomb.
6 for 1, half dozen for the other. Let me just try and give some information,
Thank
if
you.
that's all right, about the determination from the planning director. What I'm being told is we haven't formally been asked to make that determination by the applicant. There've been a lot of informal meetings and things like that. But as soon as she is, the determination will be made. a little background and context for you all. In the past, we've often operated where if a condition, an actual text condition of a conditional zoning ordinance cannot be met, that is a major modification in our minds. So that's immediately where
Helpful.
this one came to us. You know, adding to the context that Brad said, it is likely not enforceable at this point. But that is one kind of principle we've operated by.
Say it again, whether or not something's a major modification.
In the
Well,
past
there's
it was.
lots of things to look at, but if there is a specific conditional zoning condition that needs to be changed, we've always looked at that as something that needs to be done at the hearing level. But that was kind of where we started with this, but we'll have, as soon as we are pressed for that official determination, it'll be made in writing.
So let me make sure I understand. So because we're in a conditional zoning process, everything has to be voluntarily offered up by the applicant. Right now, they have not yet formally requested a decision by the planning director. If the planning director, if they do that formally, then the planning director will be able to respond quickly, it sounded like.
Yes.
And based on the history, previously it suggests that maybe it would be considered. And then, that may all happen in the next 24 hours, let's say, so this needs to stay on our agenda? Sam is saying yes? Okay,
And
that's what I'm hearing.
Unless it's requested to be removed, I would think
Right.
so.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, make sure I understood. Thank you.
Can I ask one other thing related to that? If for some reason the applicant requests that this be continued again, would council be amenable to that since we have already voted on
I'm fine with
at
it,
least 3 continuations?
Yes.
yes.
Okay. All council for? Okay. Thank you.
Okay, moving into unfinished business, I may ask the clerk to help with this, but I believe the council previously, when they were discussing this item, it was suggested that it move to this agenda. Subsequently, the discussion has suggested that it be removed, but because it was suggested to move onto this agenda, it had to be listed on the agenda, and it will be officially withdrawn.
Why is it being withdrawn? Lack of support from council, I'm just looking
Yeah.
for a
Yeah,
verbal
yeah,
lack. So,
yeah.
because I had also heard that the agency that was considering doing the social districts was no longer interested in pursuing them as a result of our last meeting, so is it both?
No,
Is
no,
it-
we
We polled ourselves and
Yes.
decided it was being
it's
pulled.
just, on this for transparency to the public, because,
No, it needs to be, I just want to make sure the public's getting information, so we're deciding as a council that we don't want it to move forward. Okay. As opposed to the agency suggesting they weren't willing to continue doing it. Okay, that's all.
yes, that's a good clarification.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying.
Okay, and then new business items. We have updated council several times on the long-term recovery plan. This is an item requesting the adoption of the section 7.2 of Buncombe County's Helene Recovery Plan. This is a multi-jurisdictional plan throughout the county. The county has led this effort. Again, up to this point in time, council has heard it referred to as the long-term recovery plan. And we're just having the city of Asheville section adopted through this action. Item B is consideration for appointing new members of Planning and Zoning Commission. And that concludes the regular agenda. Okay, moving on to council committees. Nikki Reed is here today to answer any questions about Housing and Community Development Committee and Planning, Economic Development, Environment Committee. So,
I do have the agendas here on the display if you want that, but they're also included in your packet, so. I
We
will-
don't get to see that because we're looking at the beginning of this presentation, which isn't yours.
Yeah, do you want to turn this on, Mike? Yeah, if you can help me out here. We'll start with this. Yeah, just so that it's on the screen too. We'll go ahead and put that up there.
Is it cold?
Yep.
It's great for my menopause.
You had to ask, is it cold?
Don't turn it up, my temperature starts swelling. You're young, you're just a young person, you can.
She just
you're
got
tough.
glasses.
You're a tough young person.
She just got glasses.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Maggie. So the Housing and Community Development Committee next Tuesday. Our first order of business is to welcome the new CEO of Asheville's Housing Authority, Ella Santos. So we're excited to hear from her and just hear more about the Housing Authority's priorities for the coming year. So very excited to welcome her to our community. The second order of business is really some work on our steady state CDBG FY26 funding strategy. So we typically kick off that funding round towards the end of the calendar year. So we're just wanting to check in with HCD on that upcoming process and get some feedback on what we're looking forward to this coming funding cycle. On the next item is our home funding update and home ARP program update. Again, these are our entitlement steady state programs that come from HUD every year. So just wanting to, again, bring the committee along with our process on where things stand with home and home ARP. So James Shelton will be providing the updates on both of those. So happy to answer any questions, or I can move on to PEDE. Great, okay, and so another partnership presentation coming forward to the PEDE agenda. So we'll have Nathan Ramsey present. So really excited to hear from him. He is the executive director of the Land of Sky and also the director of the Mountain Area Workforce Development Board. So really wanting to dig in with him on the current state of our workforce. So looking at unemployment figures and really helping to prime us, especially as we start looking at how to utilize CDBG DR funds for workforce planning, just really helping to understand the lay of the land. So excited for that. And that's my presentation. I think public safety is next.
Yep, I can go ahead. I will not be going up there, if y'all don't mind. I will talk through this. We have 4 items, and all of them are for information. We'll be meeting on November the 20th at 11 o'clock. And the first item is an APD quarterly update, and Chief Lamb will be presenting this information. As part of our staff check-in, I was really pleasantly surprised in terms of our ability to get the number of police officers have increased, and therefore we are just able to do some very, very different things. And I'm happy to now. I'll wait till November 20th until we can share some very, very positive news in terms of crime in our community. The next item is a update on a kind of a program development, the Civilian Traffic Crash Investigator effort. This is exploratory. There isn't a program now. This is kind of in the development phase or stage, and we'll just provide, our staff will provide an update on our efforts to develop that kind of a program. The next one would be traffic safety initiatives, and this will include updates on our efforts related to enforcement of moving violations like speeding, like drunk driving, and we'll have some data and efforts that APD has underway to address those issues and concerns. And then our last item is the TS Tropical Storm Helene Unsafe Building Program. And staff from Development Services Department will be giving us an update on, and I know the community is very, very concerned with understanding, why do we still have either buildings boarded up or are they unsafe? And we just want to provide an update on those conditions and where we are in terms of building code enforcement and what that process is like within our community and why they may see some buildings that may not be aesthetically attractive and or some may feel that they are unsafe, and we want to clarify and provide additional information on those properties. And that is it. And as you all know, we have public comment at the beginning of public safety committee meetings.
well, thank you, Deborah, for taking the community concerns on 5 and 6, but the abandoned buildings was an issue even before Tropical Storm Helene, and it's just been even made worse. So I don't think we need to just focus on that, just what we're doing to enforce our code, where we are with some of the abandoned buildings, why aren't the owners taking responsibility? This is a complaint I think that we get all the time, and so I really am looking forward to that presentation.
Yeah, absolutely. We will make sure that we cover all of
We do get a lot of
that
questions
information.
about that, and I think, I don't know how you're gonna approach this in the meeting, but it would be interesting to just as for context, talk about what we already do. I don't think a lot of people know what kind of enforcement we're doing with the abandoned building or abandoned properties challenge, because there's often a lot of correspondence from staff to that property owner, or even trying to locate the property owners, or if there are heirs because the property owner passed away, and the difficulty of trying to identify a property owner to, demand that they address the concerns, and then what are the next steps? And so, that's where the legal department comes into play. It's very rare that we actually have to take legal action to deal with a property, and just because I guess, because it's kind of such a large legal leap in terms of requiring property owners to do things, or for us to be able to remedy it ourselves and lien the property for the cost of that. Good primer for people to understand that whole dynamic of what's involved there.
Absolutely. We will definitely provide a holistic presentation in terms of where we've been, and a particular initiative around those properties that are caught up in the storm damage. That is a little bit of a different process than our normal activity, but we will provide it. That is what we have for public safety.
All right, thank you. Today's agenda briefing has given me a renewed appreciation for the Google Suite. So we're moving into 8-week agenda, and again, I'm going to move to another piece of technology. So December 9th is the only future meeting that we have. Things post. Okay, yeah. So on the December 9th agenda, again, council, if there's any items that you want to learn additional information about, NEP, I think that's a neighborhood enhancement program for the water distribution system. It's a continuation of projects that they have in the capital plan to restore and replace aging infrastructure. French Broad Metropolitan Planning Organization Safe Streets Report, just asking council to support that document that has recently been produced by them. Housing Authority bond issuance, just a standard requirement of the city council to authorize those. And then that's the items that, if there's anything else, council. Oh, also, I think the budget report, that's what I was looking for. The adoption of the budget calendar for the 2026 calendar, or the next year's budget development process. January 13th is presentation of the 26 reappraisal items. And then also on the January 27th is the UDO amendment for accessory dwellings. Those items I think council we'll bring council additional information as we get closer to those items. Any questions?
It sounds like Councilwoman Ullman will be gone the 9th. I will be gone January 13th, just a heads up. Not looking at you, Deborah.
And so while we're on that topic, the point in time count is actually Tuesday, the January 27th. 7th. And I think we had this conflict
Before.
my years are running together, but one year.
Last year.
So I was gonna ask council, we could cancel that meeting. Right now, it doesn't have much on it.
The
So that-
27th?
January 27th.
I think we should keep it.
Well, I don't, because I'd like to do the point in time count, because you can do the point in
It's
time
2
count.
days.
I know,
Yeah,
but
I've
the
done it
second, the second day is like not, it's not, you don't get out in the, I mean, I don't know.
I mean, we'll have a new city manager. Who knows what type of strategic planning things they might want to do. We're gonna have a retreat coming up in Q1. I don't know. That's a
Keep
good,
it for now, think about it.
that's my thought.
You can go do it.
Esther doesn't
We
like
have a
hearing that
vice mayor.
suggestion.
Can we just change the date?
I mean, yeah, I thought about that because we,
count is 2 days.
I participate.
You have a
I
vice
do
mayor
too, but, so I
that
participate in
can run the
morning.
meeting.
no, I'm not gonna, all right, anyway, whatever, I didn't think, so we'll keep food for thought, so just keep it in mind. Maggie, there's absolutely no direction here for you, I'm sorry.
If
Why don't
there's
you ask again
nothing,
on December 9th when I'm not here?
Yeah.
and if nothing's gonna be on the agenda, then don't, if nothing's on the agenda, we don't need to meet. I mean,
Well, I thought the UDO amendment to accessory dwelling units was gonna be on
That would be
there.
the only thing, it sounds like. Really?
Wow.
Okay, I mean,
I mean, that's not 100% yet, but.
No.
that's something I wish would be on the next agenda. I mean,
Yeah,
Deferred, not withdrawn.
Yeah, it-
well, our
We
community
don't know
needs
about that,
housing.
so,
or we could move it up, we could move that item up, because we're raring to go. What do you think, Maggie? December 9th, how's December 9th
No, I
looking?
can't move it up because it's been.
It's been noticed for that date already.
Yeah, okay. It's because it's a code amendment. Yeah. We're gonna give Maggie a heart attack.
It looks like we'll need the January 27th meeting, but I can't move it up because it's been continued to that date.
Till that date, yeah.
I can move it out further, but I can't move it earlier.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry.
And
Do you
while
have
I'm-
more to say, Ben? You look like you're jumping.
We need a second meeting in January because you may have to consider a substantial amendment to the CDBG-DR action plan that may be coming.
okay. So keep January 27th. We're keeping January 27th, it sounds like.
Well, the 27th, it could be, I think we just need a second meeting in January, the 27th.
Well, why'd you guys even ask us then? Just kidding. But I did.
Because you all told us to tell you.
Well, I said,
There was a conflict this
they
year.
did email me and ask me what to do about it, and I wanted to ask you guys about it, but apparently it's not really optional.
Could we make a
It was-
request
it
that
was more
since
just
our
us.
staff
Can we-
organize this, that they check the council calendar next time?
I think it's a
The
national.
problem is the point in time count's probably, I mean, if we're on,
It's,
Okay.
it's.
So the national said.
It's-
These
we
are
don't set
nationally
it yet.
designated.
Yeah, we don't
can't
set
move
it.
the point in time
I knew it
count.
was.
you can't.
We can only move ourselves, but not really, apparently.
Maybe we could just make it a quick meeting.
Okay,
Anyway.
Before we leave that
You
topic,
could
just for the
start your
community's
meeting
benefit,
earlier.
to understand
yeah,
what,
why don't we start our meeting?
That's a
maybe-
good idea.
Let's discuss
Let's
that
just-
option, everyone think
Yes.
about it. Let's not make a decision.
We don't have.
We could talk about this till then.
just for the
Yeah.
community benefit, if there's an interest in participating, it had been mentioned that there are 2 opportunities. The January 27th will be from 4 to 7, and the January 28th will be from 10 to 2. So just want the community to have that information.
4 to 7.
And I'll check with council perhaps at their next meeting to see whether you want to move that January 27 meeting earlier during that day, even though noting that the 4 o'clock is the point in time when it starts on that day.
That's a good solution. Test morning meeting.
Yeah, let's, okay. Great suggestion. Might work.
Good. So moving to other issues and updates, we have HR staff here to provide a Human Resources Department assessment update, and I'll hand this over to Emily.
And as Emily is coming up, this may seem a lot like it's kind of operational, but because there have been a lot of concerns about human resources kinds of issues, and because we did an extensive assessment of the HR department, and we haven't come back probably in several months, it may have even been a year, to provide you all with some updates and status report in terms of receiving the assessment, the information, and the implementation of that assessment. And I am really going to brag on Emily because she has been doing an exceptional job of taking that document and looking at it as one of the most important things that she's been charged to do, other than looking for another city manager, because the HR assessment and its relationship to employee morale and the things that employees, people who work in our organization, and their heightened expectations of this being an employee-friendly organization, our ability to recruit, all of those things. And so we thought it was really important for us to bring you all an update of that assessment. The last part of the presentation will also deal with an issue that kind of affected me personally, that deals with disparate pay for Black females in the organization, and we'll be providing you with those findings as well to assess and determine whether this is systemic or whether it is something that was kind of a one-off. So I will turn it over to Emily, and appreciate you being here.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to provide an update to council, so thank you for having me today. As Deborah mentioned, it's a lot of information, a lot of operational information, so I'm gonna go through it quickly. If you have questions, obviously feel free to stop. Key takeaways. So in March of 2024, the Raftellus Consulting Group delivered the HR assessment that resulted in 22 recommendations to improve human resources service delivery, improve employee morale, and shift the department to a more people-centric focus. As of today, 9 of these recommendations have been completed, including the functional restructuring of the department and filling key positions like the Assistant Director of HR and the Manager of HR Operations. The department has established new guiding principles, updated 15 administrative personnel policies, and 4 additional policies are currently in the final approval stage. And we've relocated the employee health clinic to a state-of-the-art location. We have a new goal framework that has been established to address the challenges that we've encountered with the original recommendations. And those focus on providing excellent service, increasing efficiencies, and improving our collaboration across departments within the city. HR leadership conducted an analysis of the wage data to address allegations of disparate wage and employment outcomes for Black women at the city of Asheville. And our preliminary analysis indicates that the wage setting practices have not resulted in broad disparate impact on the compensation of Black women. Going back to the assessment, in the fall of 2023, the city manager's office hired Raftellus to complete the assessment. The goals were made to ensure that key services delivered by HR addressed operational and cultural issues. As I mentioned, 22 recommendations were included in the initial report. Going through the status of those recommendations, the 9 that are complete, again, those include restructuring our department, filling some key positions, as well as developing performance measures to inform our work planning and to communicate progress to our stakeholders. We've also formally documented the role of HR liaisons embedded within our city departments, developed a compensation philosophy to help guide future compensation decisions. We've revised procedures for evaluating and determining compensation and classification actions, and we have also taken a deliberate project management approach to implementing technology system changes, specifically to the HRIS. 3 of the original recommendations are on hold, and they all actually are related to additional FTEs and hiring. Not only have those positions not been budgeted, I actually don't think that I am at a point where I could advocate that we need the additional FTEs. I think a lot of the work that needed to be done in the department was to clarify expectations and role responsibilities. So I have put on hold the recommendations to increase our head count, so to speak, at this point. In progress, and these are ongoing and probably will remain ongoing. They're strategic in nature. Position the HR department to be a strategic partner to the organization. That's not something that we will accomplish. It's something we just need to continue to do. Prioritize transparency and collaboration with city departments on matters that have operational impacts. Enhancing our approach to work planning and using project management to accomplish goals. Developing systems that promote effective communication and collaboration within our department, and strengthening communication between our staff and the staff that we have embedded in city departments. We have 4 recommendations that are in process and on track to be completed by the end of this fiscal year. Those include developing standard operating procedures for a training program for those HR liaisons, developing an employee guide that provides employees with easier access to policies. Those will be online. Developing SOP documentation for core HR business processes, leveraging existing communication resources to develop a communications plan, and then, as I mentioned earlier, prioritizing the key HR policy updates. Our successes that I believe have been critical to the success that we've experienced are establishing those guiding principles, successfully recruiting an assistant director and a manager of HR operations. Again, updating those policies, including the compensation policy, which had actually been taken down from the website and was not visible to employees for a couple of years. So it was very important that we get that updated and available again. Relocating the employee health clinic to a new facility that was actually designed and built to be a medical facility and offers increased parking. If you haven't had an opportunity to go to our health center, I encourage you. I would be happy to schedule a tour or a visit for any of you who are interested in seeing it. It's very, very nice and is offering lots of great services to our
It's
employees.
great. I love it. My family uses it, and it's there. I still have my personal doctor just because I don't know. I haven't been ready to let go of that, but I use it for a lot of stuff, and it's lovely.
I'm glad to hear that. Thank you.
And it's cheaper for the city. if we use it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes,
That's
and
why I
cheaper
kinda
for
want-
our employees, so it's a win-win. We have reset the frequency and purpose of some HR-led meetings, specifically the HR liaison and the supervisor meetings. This success, the next one, has been really critical. We instituted weekly CAPE check-ins with our CAPE liaison, and that has allowed us to actually begin a cadence of communication with our employees so that they are kept up to date, and it has us thinking about what's important to communicate, which I'm not sure was happening previously. We've updated the content and the delivery of our new employee orientation. We successfully launched the Perform module of NeoGov with the police department, and we coordinated lodging for Helene first responders, and as well as coordinating mental health services for city employees following the storm. And a fun one is we created a new HR logo, which I'll show you.
Let's go.
Cute.
So
Yeah.
there's a person in our HR logo, indicating that we are person-centered. Yes.
That's nice.
Really important to share with you is the improved internal survey results that we've experienced. So if you look on the left, in January of 2025, of the 5 measures that the city surveys employees on, we were only hitting the 80% mark on 2 of those. As of November of 2025, you can see that we are above the 80% in all 5.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Meeting customer needs as far as our information being accurate. Again, you can see large growth in each of the areas, including compensation, benefits, health services, recruiting, operations, professional development, coaching, and employee relations. So
These are graphs we'd like to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, this
these
is
are graphs
great.
I
Good
like to
job
see
getting
too.
it back on
Thank you.
track.
Plus the added,
Good
like, we
hire.
don't need more staff to determine this. Thank you.
Meeting customer
Yeah, this is
needs.
a little like, really?
We didn't do it.
I love it.
Meeting customer needs, again, you can see significant growth. We do have some areas specifically around recruitment and business partners and professional development that we need to continue to focus on, but really excited and happy to see this. I think if you were to talk with the team, they're pretty energized and excited as well. So it's a good time in HR right now. I'm going to go through this a little quickly. This is how we've reframed the assessment. As I just mentioned, I feel like the team is experiencing a renewed optimism. We have some momentum going with getting some successes. We're really trying to transition from a transactional mindset. When I got here, my people were really focused on tasks and not necessarily on like service delivery and how those tasks all feed into like strategic initiatives. And at the end of the day, the transition is a marathon, not a sprint. And so when we look at those recommendations, we realized that we thought we needed to reassess those, particularly because some of those goals were not designed to be completed at the same time. And so you needed to have certain things done before you could get to another goal. And then in addition to the lack of maybe like a sequential implementation that the report didn't align to, it didn't address the need for cross-departmental collaboration. And so, you know, HR has to work very closely with finance around payroll. Here at the City of Asheville, finance actually manages our payroll processes, which is great, but our HRIS and the finance information systems need to be able to integrate with each other, and that means that our processes have to be integrated. So that relationship between HR and finance is crucial for our success. The other thing that we wanted to address is that the HR liaison model, while effective in some areas, it does have some flaws, the biggest one being that those are not HR employees. And so they're functional roles that are attached to other positions. And so some departments might assign the HR liaison role to an administrative assistant. Others might assign it to an entry-level manager. And so not only do the skill levels of those employees differ, their workloads differ, their ability to focus attention on the HR duties differs. And so we've been working to pool duties and tasks that really do need to be completed by an HR professional back into the department. Because at the end of the day, it's not fair for us to be asking people who are not trained HR folks to do HR work. So that was another reason why we wanted to look at the recommendations. And so we are now focused on these bullet points, which is we provide excellent HR services, we perform our tasks efficiently, we track our work more effectively, we collaborate more effectively with other departments, we formally document our processes, we simplify handoffs between stakeholders, and we facilitate wide and effective use of our HR tools. So most of our departmental and organizational work plan items would fall into one of these categories. Moving forward, I think this will allow us to be more flexible and adaptable to meet our organizational needs. It's also, they're really practical guidelines that people can think about day to day. And I do think that focusing on these will get us to that people-centric service model that Deborah spoke about. Moving into the wage and disparity.
I have
Go
a
ahead.
question. If you could go back to the goals slide.
Sure.
Love it. Those are really helpful, and I think will provide great leadership for your team to know, like, I'm doing the right thing every day. Do you also have like established outcomes that you're trying to seek? So
Yes.
like, we want to be excellent to what end, which I think helps us, like that is to manage your team and is awesome. But for us on council, I want to know that we have high morale, or that we have lower turnover, or that we have people growing, or whatever, kind of the like outcome side. I'd love to see that at some point as it's relevant for us when we're thinking about our HR leadership functions.
Yes, agree. And so those are what we're in the process of developing now, are
Great.
those. So we have not been tracking things like turnover. We have not been tracking things like how employees move through the organization, maybe from entry-level positions into leadership
Growth,
positions.
yeah.
But those are the things that we are also talking about that we need to be able to report out
Great.
on.
So it'll be another turn of the strategy
Yes.
cycle. That'll be great. And then, get to a point where we're in that regular cycle of seeing those outcomes org-wide. Great
The
job.
other data we're really interested in getting to is a point where we can say our time to post and then our time to hire.
Yeah.
I think that we right now experience some pretty big lags, and in this market, that is really, really difficult.
People are gone.
Right. So, yeah, we have to improve there. Wage disparity update. So the challenge, as Deborah mentioned, before I got here, I know that there were some allegations of disparate wage and employment outcomes for Black women. HR leadership began then to collect data and to do some analysis and report back to City Manager's office on that issue. I decided to also, in addition to the previous analysis, to look at it through the framework that the Department of Justice has for disparate impact. And so they identify that analysis as requiring a specific policy or practice, establishing that there's adversity or harm, and establishing a statistical disparity. So to do that, which is a little more intensive than looking just at promotional rates, we compared the average rate of pay for the Black women who work for the City of Asheville to other employees in their same job class. And on average, Black women here make 6.28% higher than their colleagues in the same job classes. Of the 33 job classes that are held by Black women currently, only 5 show any sort of disparity. And in those 5, 9 women earn about 3.9% less than their peers. And I will tell you that that's within statistical norms for just even like tenure, right? So last year, I think you all approved a 3% increase. And so 3% of that 3.9 might be due to the person being here for a year longer than their counterpart. And so that preliminary analysis indicates that our wage setting has not resulted in any broad disparate impact on the compensation of Black women.
And Emily, if I could, I hope that no one feels that this data undermines the concerns that were expressed by those Black females. That is not what we're saying. What we are saying is we had to do a deeper dive. There are instances where whatever those women felt, and we have to acknowledge that experience of that feeling that they or something was significantly wrong with the way that we pay our employees, particularly Black women. And so, as I said, I do not want to discount the concerns that those Black females expressed to us, but we just had to dig deeper and get more information about it.
Yeah.
And are the findings that are being presented today.
Just taking this a little bit one step further, I mean, I suppose somebody could say, well, within my job classification, maybe I make slightly more than somebody else in my job classification, but I haven't been promoted and I should have been promoted.
And that's the next step.
Okay, thank you.
Next up. Thank you.
No, and I want to reiterate what Deborah just said. This in no way negates the concerns or the issues that were brought forward. And I actually have some ideas about how we need to continue to work towards better pay equity across all of our demographics.
And recruitment.
Yes, that's a big one. Yeah. So this is, to Mayor's point, looking at promotional data. I just updated this. During the last 18 months, 23 of the women who have been promoted within the city of Asheville, of those, 26% identify as non-white and 13% identify as Black. This percentage aligns with our local demographic data, which reports that approximately 25.7% of Asheville's population is non-white, so we're actually very much aligned. I don't want to, I guess, posit that that's the best measure, but it is a standard measure. When you talk to folks around diversity, they will ask, one of the first questions they'll ask is, does your demographics, do they reflect the community's demographics? And so I think in that sense, we do. Again, I think even looking at that, we can say that our promotional practices have not resulted in a broad disparate impact on the advancement of minority women over the last 18 months. I do believe that where we have a lot of opportunity is to hire more non-white women. So while 11% of our local population are non-white women, we only have 7.28% of our current employees who fall into that same demographic category. I believe we need to normalize and educate utilizing position equivalencies, and so that would be, as opposed to traditional educational requirements, using experience as an equivalency to. And I also think that we need to look at how we can diversify our candidate pools. There are some things that we could do that we are starting to do now, but that have not been done previously around anonymous screening and HR being more active in screening candidates over to hiring managers for review, that I think would increase our candidate pools and allow us to hire more non-white women. And I will also say that in doing the wage analysis, again, while we did not see disparate analysis between Black women and women, there is a gap, a gender gap in pay between men and women in the city of Asheville.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering if we looked at all
Yeah.
realms of disparities.
Could you
too.
remind me what those concerns were from Black women? It was promotion, it was
That they were,
pay, and what else?
I believe those were the two major ones. I kind of stayed out of the process so I could remain objective, but our attorney was a part of that process.
Yeah, I think that you've hit it correctly. It was primarily, I think, career advancement opportunities, whether that be promotional opportunities or increases in pay, all fed into a question about, are both of those things being applied equally, regardless of racial considerations?
And even with the promotional opportunities, having their jobs be reclassified, which is, it's sort of it's in the promotional context.
I think the other area where we need to spend some time and energy is just on belonging in general, and how we encourage and enhance our employees' feelings of belonging. I also think that and I wasn't here, but in reading the reports, I do think Brad's right that a lot of the concern was based around like the ability to advance their careers. And, you know, those statistics that I shared are great, that we've improved so much, but you'll notice that like professional development and coaching are still pretty low. And they're low because we haven't been able to target those. We have to get our policies, we have to get our processes in order. I think we need to offer our employees opportunities to get some coaching and development help. So if you're raising your hand saying, I want to do more, instead of just, okay, apply for positions that come open, like how can we help you prepare so that you're ready when a position comes open to go into the interview and to, you know, demonstrate your capabilities and your competencies to the best of your ability.
And to demonstrate that you can literally have a career at the city of Asheville, not just a job. And that's what Emily is emphasizing.
Yeah. So those are things that we definitely also want to turn some strategic focus to.
I have a question about that. And I think maybe the survey is pointing to that because you're getting better marks from the internal survey. But it sounds like a spirit of not just workforce development, but workplace development.
Correct.
And so how would we start to measure if people feel like they belong and that there is a career for them here? How would that show up in our outcomes?
So,
Employee satisfaction.
yeah, employee satisfaction surveys,
We did
which
it
I
every
don't
year,
know
Cheryl.
that we do here regularly. I also think that when I've done employee satisfaction surveys in the past, one of the areas is specifically around, like, I feel like I have the opportunity to grow and develop. But you're absolutely right. It's not about growing a workforce. It's about how, once they're here, they can actually grow their career. We need to develop better training programs so that people know and understand the resources that we could make available to them. And so that's all kind of, it needs to be a comprehensive, I would call, reboot of sorts. Again, Lauren Abe, who's our Organizational Effectiveness and Development Manager, is leading the policy updates at this point, and so the goal is for her to be done with that this fiscal year so that she can shift her attention to those more strategic development. Again, going over those key takeaways, we had 22 recommendations. We've been able to complete 9. We have others that are in process, including updating those policies and relocating the health clinic. We've established that new framework for our employees, like my team, to look at their work through. We've continued to do the analysis of the wage disparity. And I will tell you that that's not something that I see leaving or stopping just because Deborah's not here. I think that we have a commitment. We have a responsibility to continue to look at those. I will also tell you that I think we will be limited into what we could do in-house. There are analysts that specialize in looking at your wages to tell you all the things we can do a certain level. But again, I think that's part of what we should continue to do for all of our demographics. Any other questions?
Thank you so much, Emily, for this information, really helpful, and thank you for just taking other things seriously that we brought up around our first responders and acting so quickly. One thing just to put on your radar, a disparate wage that I see is we still have about 80 folks who are temporary workers who are out there every day cleaning up our streets, and they don't have access to health insurance. They also don't get time and a half pay or holiday pay. And so I would just look forward to hopefully getting them a living wage in our next budget and hoping that you can make sure that they are also taken care of.
I think we're in that cluster, right? Aren't we temporary seasonal employees?
We're temp seasonal.
Yeah. Is this when we
I
say we
mean the
should
people
increase our
out there.
pay?
Are you all
cleaning our
feeling
streets
seasonal or
and
temporary?
serving the
So
city.
are you
I
talking
definitely
about-
feel
Are you talking
temporary.
about part-time employees or?
Well, there's a whole section
Yeah.
of temporary employees that don't have access to the benefits that other, but they're also not paid a living wage. They're close, but I think we can get them over the line in this next budget.
Yeah.
At least I'm hoping.
And I don't know their hourly wage, so I don't want to speak to that, but you are correct. And I will tell you that this is something we're already in discussion with finance about because
Awesome.
we do have a group of employees who are, in my opinion, miscategorized. Temporary seasonal should be just that. They should start on a date, they should end on a date. Like a parks worker in the summer is a great example. They start in May, maybe they end in September, and then they're taken off the books. There's a lot of reasons why that pool has expanded here, but we are trying to unravel and reclassify folks so that they're in more appropriate, if they really are like a part-time position, that they're categorized as that and that they get access to the benefits you're talking about.
Thank you.
So one area that I've gained some new understanding is our sanitation workers work on a contract. And is that also categorized as temporary? We have some sanitation workers that are not full-time.
They're not employees?
I
They're
was
a
gonna say, are they
1,000-hour contract?
That's the temp seasonal.
Okay,
It's the same,
okay.
yes.
So we have temp seasonal sanitation workers?
Yes. And
We have temp seasonal, all
Every-
sorts of workers. And so what's happened,
Is it debris related?
I think some of it, but I don't think that that's where it starts because we have temp seasonal, lots of temp seasonal workers in Parks and Recreation. We have lots of temp seasonal workers at CREF, which again makes sense if they're going to sign on for a season, right? They're gonna be an usher for a year and work 1,000 hours. What's happened though is we haven't done a good job of maintaining those roles, and so people don't get taken off the payroll. And while we are good about making sure they don't go over the 1,000 hours, because that's the trigger, the lever for ledgers, where we have to start paying retirement, we're not good at making sure that they don't continue to work past the year. So we have some temp seasonal workers who are like 8-year employees.
Whoa.
And that's what initially drew my attention, was I was like, this
That's not
can't
temp
be.
or
Like, this is
seasonal.
not temporary or seasonal anymore. Like,
I
how
see
do we?
folks at the Civic Center that I've seen for like almost a decade, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And some of those folks, like, I don't think Chris is here, some of those folks like really enjoy that, and that's something they do to
They
earn
want.
extra money, and they don't want more hours. But what Bo, I think, is speaking to, and what I think we need to address, is when we have workers in those positions who would be pleased to take a part-time benefited or a full-time job, they're just not offered that because we just have this temporary seasonal slot. So but it's not gonna be solved quickly, but we are starting, and actually, we're working with CREF to figure out how many temp seasonal roles they could transition to part-time benefited roles. And eventually, it should save us money administratively, because you won't be posting and hiring and filling those positions so frequently. Of course, there'll be another cost associated with any potential benefits that they are offered, but at the end of the day, it's the right thing to do, and it will help us.
Thank
Will
you.
improve us.
And I know we've got another agenda item, so we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. But thank you, Emily, for all the hard work that you're doing. And I know that oftentimes we are asked, well, why do you hire consultants, and why do you have to bring in somebody to assess what we're doing? Can't you all do it yourself? Most of the time, there is tremendous benefit of having a third party come in. Nobody's just coming in and look at operationally how we're doing. And I think there was tremendous return on investment for this HR assessment. I don't know that it uncovered a whole lot of what we didn't already know, but it helped us prioritize. It helped us understand the importance of being people-centric and not transactional, that particularly an HR department has such a key role in terms of, again, maintaining employee morale and consistency operationally throughout the different departments that we have. So thank you again. We appreciate your work, and I hope you all felt this information was informative.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay, and then the last item on the agenda is a change in the agenda, is a transit presentation. This is in response to council's request to have this move to this briefing agenda. I'd like to start out by saying that just based upon the last few days and the information that we've received from council, I'd just like to mention that the next step of the study is to direct the consultant to develop a draft network. The draft network will be done in joint effort between the consultants, city staff, and members of the public who are part of the project's work group. The reason for us bringing this to council is that the staff is seeking the support of the city council, because the support is necessary to confidently move through the next steps, next phase of the design process with the appropriate direction. Staff recommendation that you will see in the presentation, because again, this was a pretty last minute pivot, will be modified to direct consultant to move forward with a design that shifts slightly towards ridership, again, given the contents of the outcome of this conversation. This change in the recommendation is based on feedback that staff has received from council over the last several days. Any shifts in the service delivery model will need to be considered resources limitations such as, but not limited to, current funding levels, bus driver availability, equipment, land use, development patterns that the city currently exist in the city, and other items that may influence the impact. Ricky is listed on the presentation here. Ricky was not able to tune in remotely, so Jessica has graciously agreed to provide the presentation.
Okay, so everybody, what's happening right now?
Run this again?
Yeah, so Jade, not everyone was there in that last check-in meeting to kind of hear where we landed. So what staff heard from once they heard from all of council was that a majority would like to just move to nudge towards ridership, not, which was what staff's original recommendation was. And so we discussed whether we needed to have a big formal vote about it at a council meeting, or if we would do it here in this agenda review where all but unfortunately Vice Mayor can make this part. I'm sorry, I'm getting tickled. So that's what's happening right now. And now, did I set the stage correctly? So it won't be on our agenda Tuesday night. This is the opportunity to, where we're gonna be together as one to provide this guidance to staff so that they can then do their work and come back to us.
Can you, in this conversation, I'm imagining that we'll have some next steps. Because for some members of the public, this will be brand new information today, and I think they would be surprised if we weren't giving direction details on the same day that we receive this information publicly. I know we're still getting lots of feedback, and there's more to come. So maybe knowing when we'll touch it again so people know what to expect.
Yeah, and I'm sure Jessica will provide kind of that timeline, but what I hope that we will do is, you have provided us with some direction in terms of how should we design a transit system from an operational perspective, and we have these, I don't want to say that they are conflicting ends of the spectrum, coverage or ridership. And we think, I think with further analysis, obviously we need to do both. But what I hope you all understand is we are an infant transit system, and it needs to grow and develop. And obviously we've got to have two things happening for us. One is we've got to have a development pattern that encourages the ability to have this type of option, transportation option, but we've also got to have additional revenue in order to expand and grow and develop. So we're again, at this infancy stage of growing which I hope in years to come will be an exceptional mobility option for our community. And I'm hoping, again, that you all will allow us to do a little bit more analysis, because I think a decision about a specific operational plan needs to be done within the context of implications. If you do X, these will be the consequences, because we just don't have enough money. And so we have got to make some tough choices in terms of how much of the expansion to ridership can we go to without significantly impacting the existing coverage model that we have. Because we got a development pattern that's dispersed. And we have riders that are dispersed, and a lot of them, quite frankly, are transit dependent. And so I will get off my soapbox.
I am a little annoyed that for $299,000, Ricky or someone else from Jarrett Walker and Associates couldn't tune into this meeting, but.
Well, he's tuned in,
This just
but,
came up,
yeah.
right? Yeah, this came up. At
And he
5
is
It wasn't
tuned in,
supposed to
but
be.
we don't have the ability to bring in a virtual person in this room for whatever reason.
Will Ricky be able to join, I know this presentation, or a presentation is being made to the county commission on Tuesday. Is he going to do that?
Yes.
Will he be there in person, or will it be remote?
To be determined. He had planned to come here for Tuesday, but he can do a virtual presentation to the county commission.
Oh, I see. So it depends on whether we need him here.
Right.
Or he can get a flight.
So Deborah, I didn't quite understand what you were saying there in terms of what's about to happen, but maybe we need to listen to you, and then we're going to hear what.
Sure, we can talk more about that in detail. This is essentially the same presentation that you've seen in the 3x3s as
So
Jade
you're gonna walk
mentioned.
through that whole presentation. Okay, I'm just a little bit worried about
Yeah,
Time.
I
because
can go
we're-
quickly, I can go very quickly, or we can skip to timeline and
discussion?
recommendations.
How many
Um,
slides are there?
I think there's about 12, 13.
Because we've seen this part, but the public hasn't, but
Yeah.
Community hasn't.
Yeah, so part of this is also for us to just kind of bring the
Okay.
public up to
And this
speed on
hasn't
where
been
we're at.
updated with what Jade just said. So
Right.
that's kind of confusing.
Right. So the purpose of this specific presentation is to give you guys the overview of the public engagement that we received during this this current phase that we're in, which is the second phase of our project, looking at ridership and coverage concepts, which are both on those, each end of that spectrum. Just to reiterate, no decisions have been made. We're not suggesting that any service is going to be changed or cut, any specific route, nothing. This is just to talk through the values and the concepts that we've come up with on how to allocate our resources. We did go to the Multimodal Transportation Commission and the PNZ in October. Multimodal Transportation Commission, they had not seen the public engagement input yet, but at that time, they felt like they needed to make a recommendation to lean more towards the ridership end of the spectrum. So this last bullet, it was our staff recommendation, but based on the information that we heard collectively throughout the 3x3s over the last week, there does appear to be a majority that feel like we should take a slight step towards ridership. So that is what our recommendation is from a staff perspective at the moment. So we are, like I said, in this second phase. What we will do next is next week, we have a 3-day retreat planned with our consultant where we will sit down with them and come up with a network design that reflects that slight step towards ridership. And that's where we get into the more tangible detail of if we take this step to the right towards ridership, that means we have to take away from this location or this location and create some options on how do we accomplish moving towards a ridership goal, which means adding frequency to the network somewhere. How do we pull the other end of the string, and where would we focus that service reduction? So we will go through that exercise with our working group, create that draft plan and that draft network, and come back to you guys. And then you would see, this is what the impact would be. And then you would have another opportunity to make decisions based on that.
That was my point, Mayor. You said you didn't understand, maybe.
Oh, that part, yeah, that,
It's iterative.
yes, and I guess I thought you were saying, even before you give us this guidance, we want to do, so, no, you're saying with this guidance, we're gonna come back to you with these.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Right, so I won't go through this. I think you guys know what ridership and coverage is at this point, and that, again, these are just the concepts that we created to try to illustrate this trade-off, this difficult trade-off between these goals, both of which are, have pros and cons and are essentially a values judgment and a policy decision. So our existing land use, as City Manager Campbell said, is we've got a very dispersed land use pattern. We have a lot of housing in various areas of the city, and so our current network is really essentially the same as the coverage concept that we designed. Our development patterns, including a lot of our affordable housing and public housing, are at far ends of the city, and so a lot of our routes are targeted to go in those directions. And just to go back, like our transit network design, we can pivot that, but our land use patterns, we cannot pivot that as quickly. So our current system is about a 50-50 blend of ridership and coverage. So that means, like I said, about half of our routes are structured so that there's higher frequency on those key corridors. But The other half are targeted more towards serving those housing communities and areas where we have a lot of residential development. So essentially what we asked the public was, where do you lean between these two concepts? And this is just a summary of our efforts for getting out this, this conversation. We had a public survey, and I'll go through some of the responses to that. So we did look at how many, we talked to riders, occasional riders, frequent riders, folks that only ride maybe once a year or don't ride ART at all. We looked at different age groups. We looked at household income, race, and again, this was the primary question that we asked. We did have about 900 plus responses to the overall survey. The question on where do you fall on the spectrum, we had only about 660 people respond to that question. But you can see that it's pretty split, but slightly leans towards more of the coverage.
Wait, so 300 people didn't answer the question?
Yeah, which is not uncommon. And I think in particular, this is kind of a tricky question for folks. So I think they either didn't feel like they had enough information or were not sure. But we also had some folks that said they weren't sure. But a lot of folks did skip the question. So breaking it down, we did some crosstabs on the responses, looking, like I said, at frequent, occasional, non-riders. Frequent riders, you can see the blue, they tend to lean towards the preference of coverage. Occasional riders, I would say, is more evenly split. And then non-riders are also pretty evenly split. But it's really important to note that just because it might lean slightly towards one area, there's still a pretty decent amount of people that feel like there's a lot of value with the other concept. So it's a very difficult decision, and it's very highly personal to each person that's taking that survey. And there's no right or wrong answers here. This is breaking it down by income, and those lower income residents making under $29,000 a year, you can see in the blue, tend to skew a little bit more towards the coverage. And the chart below that, higher income residents, it's kind of the opposite. There's a skew towards the ridership concept. And then here we have by race. And so for Black respondents, there's a kind of a split here too, where we see there's a 29% that are strongly in preference of ridership, 25% on the other end. For Hispanic or Latino respondents, it's a skew towards the ridership concept as well. But cautioning you again on these numbers, you can see the total numbers of respondents that are in that category. This is not a statistic survey. So it's just another part of the information we want to provide you to show this is what we heard, but it's just one piece of the public input and the consideration. So key takeaways, again, we will come back to you with a draft network. It'll probably be late January, early February, and then you will see more detail. If we do, like we're recommending today, to go towards the ridership end of the spectrum, we'll sit down with our consultant, we'll develop that draft network, and then we'll come back with detail on what does that mean? What are the specific trade-offs that we'd have to make, and give you that tangible information, like who would be most impacted if we make this change, who would this benefit, and it'll be a more tangible thing. But this is still a really important part of the process for us, so that we don't go into this next phase without some kind of understanding about what the council desires.
I wanted to jump in since we did have some of these 3x3 conversations and just bring some of the conversation I was part of to the full group, is that I am interested in seeing us try more of a ridership approach. I think that we've been trying this 50-50 split since our transit master plan, and we're seeing decreasing ridership, increasing delay times, like the system is struggling and our land use is sprawling. And so I really am eager to try it. I would like to lean towards ridership on that 5-point scale. And information I'd like to see as we move towards the next phase of analysis is if we're having higher frequency in certain areas, I want to understand which areas and how does it relate to housing costs? How does it relate to income levels? I wouldn't want just one metric like this is a low ridership route to be the only metric we'd use to have staff say then therefore cut it. Because if that's a quote unquote low ridership route, but it serves some of our lowest income folks, that changes my math. Right. Because I philosophically believe that transit is a service for those in greatest need and not an amenity for fun. And in a really wealthy system, maybe it could supply both. But I just want to make sure as we explore moving more towards ridership, that when these trade-offs are presented to us, I'd like to see trade-offs presented with a weight towards increasing frequency for our lowest income communities and increasing frequency for our minority and like our public housing communities as an important metric, not just necessarily are there a lot of people on this bus or whatever other methods we'd use. I don't understand what criteria will be used, but that would be important to me because, I mean, what a loss if we like jacked up ridership to our wealthiest corridors, or corridors of people with greatest wealth. Like that would defeat the service of this, the point of this being a public service in my perspective.
I'll layer into, I generally am supportive of trying more of a ridership model. I continue to think that, I mean, Maggie just made some great points, Councilwoman Allman, sorry, that it has been struggling and we are losing ridership and it's concerning. I'm also I'll just share that I'm disappointed that there weren't other components. I guess I had been under the impression that if we were going to look at something like more ridership, that the coverage area might have some other things like microtransit options or other things that would allow for folks like that. But there's just, the absence of that is glaring to me. So I'm just sharing that because I feel like it's part of the puzzle. But I'm glad that we're looking at it. I'm glad that this council worked to keep this study here and funded it, and that we're at least having the conversation. It's a challenging solution to find, and I look forward to staff's input. I look forward to more community input. I shared this in my little staff meeting. I'm a little worried that we don't have enough input from folks that aren't already using the system. I saw some better numbers that maybe I hadn't seen, but I likened it to how we often as a council have to vote on or manage housing development applications, where if we had just gone to everyone in that neighborhood and said, do you want this apartment complex next to you? They'd say, no, we know that. But that never accounts for the residents that would have lived there. And so there's always like a missing stakeholder to me of the people that would use it. And I know you've got some. I encourage us if there's more input efforts that we try to engage more non-riders. Because really there's the public service of providing transit. There's the environmental and sustainable impacts of getting people out of their cars. There's livelihoods. In this particular city, we spend 21 or 22%. The average resident spends 21 to 22% on transportation, on top of the 30 or 40 they're spending on housing. So we have more than just a service need. We have a greater purpose of building community, sustainability, et cetera. So I'm just sharing some more context because I just don't want us to have a limited tunnel when we're looking at this.
So as a person who uses the bus almost every single day, I wanted to say thank you, Jessica, for being here and providing this. I know we put it in a tight time crunch at the end of a meeting. But one of the things that I did send to our transportation department staff who are here is a request that we get some of those documents that we used to get when I was on the transit committee that show the ridership by route and also on-time performance, missed trips, those kinds of things. I think I would normally look for in a transit committee agenda. And I think we talked about they might be auto-populating a document, and I think it'd be so helpful for us to have this while we're looking deeper. Another thing that came up in conversations with staff that I think might help the council is in this next step of planning, we had asked as advocates and people who ride the bus to include a union member because they would or a staff member that would understand the routes because they drive them. And we may not be able to do that, but we do have some former staff who are very knowledgeable in our community, as well as multimodal and transportation committee members. I first thought of Bruce Emery because he had experience with transportation planning in Atlanta. He helped with our last transit master plan. But also, given what my colleagues are saying, if we could bring in someone from HACA to the table, I know there's confidentiality around the processes, but I think it would just help if the folks who are using the bus, how do I say this? The last transit master plan, it was so illuminating because we actually ended up adding frequency on the S4. And I don't think folks may know what it means to be able to ride the S4 through the south side to AB Tech. We, as an organization, before my time on council, increased frequency on the S4 to AB Tech for the whole city, but also in doing that for Southside to be able to connect with UNCA and also the whole city. It went from every hour to every half hour. So if that ridership is low on the S4, but we end up pulling that string to add, let's say, South Asheville service, we might end up getting a different outcome than we intend. And that's kind of what I'm hearing from my colleagues. Do we take away the Emma community service to provide service somewhere else? And that's where I want to share a story of what I heard on the bus. The consultant was there, it said City of Asheville on the front of the table, and I heard a bus rider that lives in Beaverview that I've ridden the bus with for over 10 years. And the consultant asked, do you want more reliable service that comes more often? And the rider said, yes, because who wouldn't say yes to that? And they said, even if you have to walk farther to get to it. And he said, sure. And I asked her, I stepped in and I was like, do you know that, look at the map, the Beaverview isn't on this frequency map anymore. And when I continued the conversation with this rider later on the day, she's like, this is why I don't participate in the city's surveys anymore, because I feel like I'm being tricked. So I wonder, what does it look like for us to tell the story that what we heard from our city manager, we actually need both for land use and planning and funding and providing quality, equitable services. We need to fight for funding, and even though I didn't support the study being done in the first place, I'm trying to trust the process, and I thought that this data would help us make a fight for funding. And so that's why I'm hopeful that we will then argue for more funding, more collaboration. I'm hopeful that the conversation with the county can include a conversation around funding, because if you're gonna tell me that we're gonna have microtransit, and you're gonna pick me up at my front door and take me to the front door of the grocery store, then I don't actually need to live on a dense corridor. I can live on the farthest edges of Hall Creek or New Leicester Highway, because you're gonna pick me up at my front door. That conversation about microtransit leads to more sprawl, more traffic, more CO2 emissions, and 3 to 6 times more cost. So I think we need more money for transit.
We all in agreement about we need more money for transit. We also need more time, and we don't have a lot of time today.
I want to chime in on this
But
really quickly,
can
though.
I mean, what I'm hearing right now is that, and thank you for that, is that we have a majority that would like to see a nudge towards ridership, and I think.
I'm firm in coverage, because I don't think we can pull the neighborhoods out of our service.
I understand what you're saying, and I understand what you're saying. I think it'll be a challenge for staff to work with the staff, work with the community, and come up with some changes that move us towards ridership and bring it back to the city council. What we heard from Ricky, who has done this in several communities, is that it's really hard. It's really hard to make these changes because there are trade-offs. And he reminds us, our neighbors across the mountain in Knoxville made this change towards ridership, and it was difficult, and there were many people who came to the hearings and talked about it, but they have an 18% increase in ridership in 1 year. So I think if we don't look at something different than our broken system, which we are struggling to fund as it is, let alone find additional funding, we are not doing ourselves any favors. So I applaud that we have done this work. We have learned so much through this study about the push and pull of coverage versus ridership and what's to be gained and what's to be lost. And so I think I look forward to this coming back from staff. I think we've heard from council that we want to ensure that our public housing neighborhoods remain connected. We've heard about our most vulnerable neighborhoods staying connected, and with that guidance, I think they've got their work cut out for them. But I know I share in the hopefulness of all of council about what's possible.
Also, can we please get the ridership data, because I thought ridership was returning to pre-2020 levels, and I want to make sure we're telling the true story.
We will provide.
If we're gonna
this in the
cut any
follow-up.
routes, I think the ones that go outside the city, like to Black Mountain, the airport, and, outside in West
Lester,
Asheville.
Woodfin,
Yeah,
yeah.
Black Mountain can help us with, getting revenue. The airport might be able to help us. And then again, don't mean to sound like a broken record, but every other city I go to makes funds for their transit through advertising on the bus. So I think if we can look at some innovative ideas so that maybe we don't have to cut as much, that would be very helpful.
I really love these discussions, but I feel like we make a lot of intellectual assumptions. But until we actually survey the people in need and design a program, design a route for the needs of people and understand the needs, it's just not about riding. Sometimes when you're riding, you're carrying children, you're disabled, sometimes you're elderly. Sometimes because a route is cut, you don't get around to things that you need. You have to make other options. So I love all the hypotheticals, and I love where we're going with slightly going to a ridership model, but in those trade-offs, I would like to know, who are we hindering in making that decision? Who are these people? What are their needs? And do they want to do the micro transit? Because I've heard several times from people who serve geriatrics or people with physical disabilities that type of ride is very hard on your body. So they choose another option. So I want to know the personal needs behind a lot of our decisions, because we can use studies and we can use hypotheticals to satisfy what we want, but the needs of a city, I think that should be where we lean. 50-50 for me. Like, improving ridership is the thing that I feel like we need to do. So what you originally presented, 50-50, with better on-time performance, that sounds good for me because it's predictable. And this city has gone through a lot of freaking changes, and people don't want to think about how they're getting from A to Z to get their children, to go to the laundromat, to carry a heavy load. Like, I would rather us just name what that slight change is and be able to articulate what the trade-off is.
That's what the study would do.
I also would be,
I have to go.
Okay.
The city is unveiling our newest art installation right now in front of the S&W in 15 minutes. So if anybody wants to come along, they can.
I'm curious to hear what you have to say, Maggie.
yeah.
Yes, and so.
I'd like to hear what Maggie has to say.
And I'm gonna, whatever, I'm leaving, so
Yeah.
don't run off the rails, everybody.
To some of my colleague Kim's points earlier, about in a world where I wasn't encumbered by us managing a budget, I just would put way more money to transit. It's so important to me. I think it's important to reach our climate goals, to have a dense city where people have options. I think it's important to serve with humanity to people who don't have the opportunity to manage and pay for and fund a car, just increasingly expensive. And I love how we set this report up to force us to have hard choices instead of just do a master plan with a magic wand with no budget, which we do too much. And then we're in this hard position. And as we're being presented these trade-offs, I would really appreciate if there were some dollar figures to it. Because I don't have a range between, I just don't understand. Like, is one route $100,000 a year?
Right.
Is one route $5 million a year? And I'm not looking for those answers today. But what I want to understand is, like, what is the flex in what you're going to be presenting us? Because I might consider a 1-cent tax increase to have a better transit system. I don't know, though. I don't know what the dollars are. So when we're presented with these choices coming forward, I would really like to have price tags with them, even if they're general. I understand it could be a whole other technical analysis to get it super, super tight, but I'd like to know how much money I want to fight for, and whether it's possible in this budget cycle as we're looking at other stuff, I don't know. But grounding it in costs, not just, and as Shanika's saying, in the people's lives, who are the folks, what's the context, that stuff will be really important for me when this comes back. Thank you, y'all, for letting me say that.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Do we want to have more discussion?
Oh, we now have no vice
Shanika,
mayor
do you
or
wanna, like,
mayor.
Why don't you take the
I
gavel, you
think that
close us
we
out.
are done, right? I
think
believe that
this-
we're
this
done.
was our
I think
last
This was
have
our
a
last item.
Do you have?
I think we've got what we need.
Okay.
Thank you.
Jade, are
Thank
you
you.
wrapping us up?
Yes, I can certainly do that. Very quickly, too, that was our last item on the agenda. We did pull the update on the engagement for the French Broad River, but we will bring that back to the
Okay.
council at some other point in the future. So thank you all for your time.
Thank
Stand
you,
adjourned.
council. We're back at 2:00.